Hello together. Uh, First off, thanks a lot for showing your interest. Um, since it was kind of difficult to find a good date and time for us to meet to discuss about the project, um, I think it would be best for me just to take a video and just explain the idea to you, so that you can watch it in your spare time. And in the near future, we'll see if we can arrange a meeting at the AISE lab here at the PUC. Anyways, I'm really happy that you got interested and reached out to me or to our team to do this together. Um, so now I want you to explain roughly the idea, which is mapping the findings of a security scanner, which can scan our code base about security vulnerabilities and risks, and map these findings to the privacy law. What this all means, I will come to that in a minute. So we basically have two problem sides to consider in privacy development. One cover discussing the developers, and the other side are our privacy experts. And on both sides, we have some serious problems to consider. Um, First off, last year there was a survey published uh, by the research lab here at PUC, which asked 88 Brazilian developers about their privacy practices. And what they found out is actually privacy and security, these words are still kind of confused for the developers and seen as the same thing. Um, Additionally, only 17% of these developers applied privacy thinking from the beginning of the project. And most of them did it during the coding stage where the design decisions were already logged in. Also, 90% of teams that don't even have a privacy expert dedicated don't use any privacy tooling at all. Still, most of these developers are learning from documentation and not from live feedback, which they get provided. For example, which is now really feasible with the current state of AI. For example, using tools like Claude Code, Cursor, Codex. Um, so this is an area we also want to focus on. And yeah, the future current concerns for the developers is how to actually implement privacy development in the software development lifecycle. So I'm sure you're familiar with the Brazilian data protection law. In Europe, we have the GDPR, which was the basis of the Brazilian data protection law. And not complying to the GDPR could lead to fines from 20 million euros or 4% of the company's global turnover, which is quite a bit. So we have the other side to consider as well, which are our privacy experts. In Europe, we have a law that makes companies um, responsible to employ a DPO, which is a protection officer, who ensures data compliance or compliance in the company, and serves as a contact for the regulators or the government. So, in a study by the European Data Protection Board, they found out and investigated some problems of these privacy data protection officers, um, since they're in current conflict with the other roles in the company. First off, the lack of resource and knowledge. Since DPO is regarded as not as the most yeah, no most pleasant role in the company in concerns to the developers, because they always have to pass information to them, explain what they're doing, roll back if there's some problems with data, or wait for the some legal uh, analysis has been done by the DPO. So often developers don't pass the information to the DPO, um, to avoid these conflicts and distraction, and just push their features without yeah, thinking too much about legal compliance. Um, Additionally, conflicts of interest and lack of independence. Conflict of interest are mostly between the processor and the DPO. Processors are usually our developers who want to push features fast and don't want to track the traction that they have to wait for some legal analysis to be done before they start to work on their features and delay their work. The other one is the lack of independence, that yeah, um, the controller, for example, the CEO, um, tells them yeah what what they can do and what they shouldn't touch. So actually, the DPO doesn't get the data he needs to do his work. That's why he has the boring role in in the companies, and yeah, which generates a lot of traction. Um, yeah, and doesn't involve the DPO correctly in the whole process, and even more when these DPOs are outsourced and not actually inside the company, then the whole thing gets even worse. So here's our dilemma: we have our privacy lawyers who know the GDPR but that can't read code, and we have our developers that write the code but don't know about the law. So now we have security scanners like Barra CLI who can detect CWE vulnerabilities. These are code or security vulnerabilities. For example, that an email is stored in clear text. But these findings don't tell the developer which GDPR article applies, uh, if a data protection impact assessment is necessary, and what the actual legal bases are. So there's actually no mapping or no grounding to these decisions. For all these kind of decisions, we still need a DPO, an expert, to give us feedback directly. And for some cases that are not necessarily or that not don't necessarily need the direct feedback of a DPO. This could be handled with the grounding of an ontology, which I come later to. So yeah, this is the current gap we want to close. And to understand this whole thing about mapping, what I'm talking about, I'll come to that now. So BarraCLI is a scanner that scans our code base for the security vulnerabilities and risks and data types. For example, here it found that an email is stored in clear text, and in our data flow it's getting passed around, for example, to other layers in our code base, or to uh, external companies that process this data. So this is how such a report could look like, but the report doesn't give you any legal feedback which article applies, which is necessary, for example, for the DPO to have in place to see what changes have been made, what legal risks appeared, and what to do about them. Um, and now our research focuses on creating a connection from these findings to the so-called data privacy vocabulary, which is a big network. You can think of it like a mixture of a network and a dictionary of legal vocabularies, legal concepts. Um, for example, where we can connect to. Uh, this data privacy vocabulary has its own data types where we can connect to risks and vulnerabilities, for example, technical measures, where we can draw a line directly in the ontology, and when we scan something, we can go through this trace, through these paths, and collect all the necessary data we need. For example, the legal grounding, the legal articles we need. And that's a big advantage because we can do this deterministically and get the legal grounding directly, um, which is the whole point. And now here's the plan, what we are trying to do, what we are trying to implement. We want to create mappings from three layers. First off are the bearer data types. Those are privacy data, privacy data types. For example, email address or health record, which can be detected with the privacy scanners. And we want to map these to the privacy data in the data privacy vocabulary. Since these data types, which the Barra can detect, are usually really similar to the ones that appear in the data privacy vocabulary, these connections can be created quite easily and almost connect directly. So when we have this connection made, we can just see what we scanned in our report and go through the paths in the DPV to see where the legal article or the article is that applies to this data type. Um, the next one, which we'll focus on in the next semester, are the security vulnerabilities and privacy risks, which are dictionaries. We can think of it like a big dictionaries or a lexicas, um, which tell you what the most common privacy vulnerabilities are or privacy risks are. And these we can also connect in with the DPV and get legal grounding from it, which hasn't been done before. And yeah, this gives you also legal traversal through our knowledge graph and picks the relevant data necessary to make legal decisions on. Okay. And yeah, here's what we discussed. We have our Barra data types, for example, ethnicity, we have accents, we have biometric data, we have ethnic origin. Those are all data types Barra can detect. And here's our data privacy vocabulary, DPV, where we use a subgraph called personal data, which looks like this is like a tree structure, and where all our data types are listed. And now we can run through these paths and see where we landed. And for example, when it's sensitive data, this connects to Article 9 in the GDPR. If these data types are just normal private data or personal data, then we get Article 6 of the GDPR, and we can like run through this graph and take what we need when we have made these connections. Exactly. And here in the DPV, we have these data types look like this, little boxes, and you can think of it like a large network who connects these nodes together. Um, and yeah, now what we can do with this? We have, for example, code bases, which I usually start on GitHub, which could look like this. Here, for example, it is a juice shop, an online shop for buying juice. And this is an example repository. For example, cybersecurity students use to practice on their skills to find vulnerabilities. Um, so we can scan now through these code bases and see if we find something with our tool which we created, and see what we can find. So this takes a while. First off, we have to clone a repository and then run through Bara and the data flow of our code to see where these data types, these privacy data types, are appearing. Here's a short selection where you can see when we query, for example, associations um, from Bara, that we get associations, direct mapping with the article 6. Or, for example, let me find something, convictions, for example, query that. And we'll get back after our traversal criminal conviction, maps to criminal conviction, um, which gives you back Article 10 and Article 6. This might take a while to scan the entire code base, so I'll go further and tell you what your actual task is. So since we created these connections, these mappings with an LLM pipeline, we can't not be quite sure if the mapping is actually correct. Uh, we have some evaluation in place, but though we need some legal experts to validate this idea, since we are messing with legal data, we need we need some expert feedback from you. And so we created this form for labeling if our mappings are actually correct. Here you have an example. For example, mapping disabilities to the DPV disability, which is almost identical. And here also you get a short idea what the pipeline thought about it. Here was an auto pass because the evaluation scores were quite high that the LLM was sure the connection was right. Anyways, here you see the data type, disabilities, and the category of Bara, which we can find in Bara and what Bara can detect. And we have the proposed mapping to disability. Additionally, the LLM found some alternatives. Here, the device software. Opa, I switched to another. Let's go back to the other one. Let's stay with this. The device, it finds some other alternatives as well, where you can select from, or we can have a short grasp if this could be a better alternative. And you can also read through the system reasoning why it selected a certain data type, which can give you some insight about the decision the LLM made. And then your choice is to decide how accurate this mapping is, if it is too narrow, too broad, or actually correct. Select this here. You can go through the suggestions the LLM made, and if you think some mapping would have been better from those that are shown above, then you can just select these. Give a short comment why, what is the case, if you have found something better. For example, what you should also do, especially for data types that don't have this auto pass here above, you should always go into the data privacy vocabulary. For example, I have a link always here to the data type. Open it and just do a Control F, look for the data type, and see if you find something more similar or better fitting to this data type. This is specifically relevant when the LLM wasn't too sure about its decision. Um, and then you can put it down here if you find something better, and give your confidence about your judgment. If you're really confident about your decision or not. And yeah, you just run through these decisions, and then hand in the form at the end. I'll just see if I can give you some example um, where the LLM wasn't too sure about its decision. Here, for example, you will see here when we get some uh, flagged identification or flagged vocabulary, flagged word. I don't know. Here above, then you should take more care because the LLM wasn't too sure if the mapping was actually correct, and see about the other opportunities or other selection of opportunities we have. Yeah, and that's actually it. Let's go back to our scanner and see what we found in our repository. We found a data flow considering the country. So we see somewhere country data is flowing through our code. We get the GDPR article, and we also see here always where the code base appears and which file and which line, um, and the variable. So we can trace back exactly to where this privacy data is flowing, and also the GDPR article, which applies to this specific finding. Yeah, and that's actually it. That's the first step we want to do. We have many possibilities in the future when we've created these mappings. For example, we could give this tool to Claude Code to automatically run it after we made some code changes. That we check the code changes if we implement some um, privacy vulnerabilities. If these are critical vulnerabilities, we can pass this data directly to the data privacy or data protection officer, who can make this data protection impact assessment, passes back directly to the officers so that we don't get distraction, which we usually have in privacy development. We get direct feedback and can involve the data privacy officer way better on the critical parts of the software development lifecycle. Um, and yeah, that's the core idea. Thank you very much for getting this far. And if you have any questions open, feel free to respond. And yeah, I hope we see you soon next week. We'll see how it goes. But I wish you great luck, great success with your exams. Have a good time.